Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Trina. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. It's been like 2.5 months since I first started this channel, and I feel like I'm starting to get a hang of the kind of content I want to make, and I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in front of the camera and doing my thing. So I thought it would be the perfect time for a formal introduction. I watched YouTube a ton in my teens back in the 2010s, and back then YouTube tag videos were like the quintessential teenage experience for me. And so I was really surprised to see recently starting Booktube that tradition is still alive in this YouTube community, that people still do tag videos like the end of year tag and the mid-year tag and of course the introduction tag. I thought I would jump on the opportunity to use that to sort of answer a bunch of questions, start off this channel more formally, officially, even though I've made a couple of videos so far. Warning in advance though, I'm skipping some of the questions that aren't super relevant to me, but I feel like everyone does that, so I'll tell you which question I'm answering when I'm going through. But to start it off, my name is Trina. I am 24 years old. My main hobbies are journaling and reading and YouTube videos and watching Twitch. And you'll see a little bit of all of that except for the Twitch part on this channel because that's why I'm here. At the moment, I'm working a full-time job and reading in between that, which is why sometimes I have reading slumps and sometimes I have reading highs. The very first question is, why did you start this channel? I've kind of dreamed about like maybe making a booktube channel over the past like year or so, because ever since I got back into reading, I also got really into booktube as a community. But at first I thought, oh, I kind of missed my chance, like booktube was only big like a couple years ago and now it's not as big and maybe I shouldn't, but in the end, I really just had this like desire to talk about books. And over the summer, I got a better phone that I could actually film videos on that weren't terrible. Before this past summer, I had a Galaxy S9, a very, very old phone that had terrible camera quality. So part of it was the camera quality. But overall, I also, in August, August 2024, so about a month and a half before I started the channel, I was in kind of a weird reading slump where I was reading a ton of books. I think I read like 23 books in August, which is a lot for me. I think it's a lot for anyone, but it was very much a lot for me having a full-time job. But I still felt like I was in a slump because I didn't feel like I was properly engaging with any of the books that I read. I was just kind of reading for the sake of like getting words down and like distracting myself from life, but not really like engaging with these beautiful books that I really wanted to like analyze and think about and talk about. None of my friends and family are really very as much into reading as I am, and when they are, we have very different tastes in books. So I thought starting a booktube channel would offer me the opportunity to talk about these books a little bit more and engage with them more deeply. And I say this also knowing that now it's been 2 months of me doing this, and that has happened. That I feel like every 5-star book that I've given with this channel, and I've talked about why I gave it 5 stars and how I felt about it, really feels like so accurate. And I feel like I've enjoyed them even more than I did before because I can talk about them. So I feel like it is working for that, and I'm really glad that I did that. This next question, what are some fun and unique things you can bring to Booktube? This is a massive website. What fun and unique thing hasn't already been done? I don't know. I really like fantasy and sci-fi. Maybe I'll try to balance out like underrated books with some of the more popular books. I like a little bit of everything. I don't know. Nothing. I can't sell myself. Don't look at me. Question 3. What are you most excited for about this channel? I think my dream, what I'm most excited for maybe in the future is once I've built up a little bit more of a consistent audience, my dream would be to just be able to talk to people about the books that I love, to summon people with the books I put in my thumbnail so that I can talk about the books that I've read. I would love to join this greater book community that existed out in the world that I didn't know about until only a few years ago. And since then I've been really enjoying watching and engaging with from the comment sections, and now I really hope to engage in a new kind of way, and I'm excited for that. And I'm a hobby girl. I love my hobbies. My full-time job is not there for the joy, it's there for the income. My real joy are my hobbies. It's reading. I love anything to do with reading, and therefore a reading related channel and a reading related community is fun for me overall. It just makes me excited overall. And also talking a little bit about journaling, which is a new hobby I've gotten into. Just talking about all my hobbies That's what I'm excited about. Question 4. Why do you love reading? What a question. I wrote some stuff down as an answer for this, but now I'm already like, no, that's not right. That's not accurate. I don't know. We could go like the deep childhood route. Like, why do I love reading? Because as a child, I needed an escape from the world and I fell into fantasy books as an escape. And since then, it's always been my escape from reality, blah, blah, blah. But also I think just as an adult, I think more like realistically, books just make me happy. People have such amazing imaginations and create such beautiful worlds in writing that I am always so impressed by, and I feel like you get new perspectives on so many different kinds of people when you read books, and I love that so very much. And I also have always loved like fan culture and engaging with people who make beautiful fan art and content around the books that they read through other means, so that has always added to the joy of reading to me, is that other people find similar joy and that can bring you together with people that you can connect over books that you both love. I'm gonna combine 2 of the questions. There's what book or series got you into reading? And then there's when did you start reading? And I think that's kind of a similar question. I started reading when everyone starts reading, probably around 5 or 6 years old, with like short stories and stuff like that. But I first counted myself as a reader when I first read Harry Potter, which I think is a lot of people's first fan culture experience, first time reading fantasy as a child. It opened up so many young people to fantasy books. I no longer really keep up with new lore to do with Harry Potter, new content having to do with Harry Potter. I don't respect J.K. Rowling anymore, the content she produces anymore, and I think it's fairly obvious that Harry Potter was a fluke and everything that she's produced since then has been terrible, but I can't really deny that Harry Potter is what made me a reader. It's what made me love reading. It's what made me love fantasy, and I think not mentioning that would be wrong, but I don't really necessarily talk about it as much anymore. Other favorite books, I also remember Anne of Green Gables being a big one for me. My dad used to read that to me when I was going to sleep, and eventually when I got old enough then I would read it myself, and I feel like that's my first experience with like old school literature and those kinds of books. And then when I became a teenager, book series like The Mortal Instruments, Percy Jackson, you know, all the classics, The Hunger Games. And then for like less classics, I had like other book series that I loved. I think I read so many different genres of books as a child. I loved like history, nonfiction, first-person accounts, fantasy, sci-fi, literary, all of them. And I feel like that's what's made me the reader that I am today. And it all started when I was just a child. I think there's also another answer to the question of like, when did I become a reader? In terms of, I took a long break in reading. I read basically up until high school, and then I became super committed to academics and studying and like after school activities and things like that, that I didn't really have time to read anymore other than fan fiction. But that was mostly just like as an escape and not like actually sitting and opening up a book and dissolving into a world. So I think if you're talking about the current era of my reading, that began when I was 22 years old, when I graduated college, and I found that I had the mental capacity and free time again to read and become a reader again. And I've committed to that, and it's been my passion ever since. As for books that got me back into reading as an adult, I took a sci-fi class my very last semester in college that I think like drop kicked me into reading again with these amazing sci-fi books. We read like Octavia Butler. We read River Solomon. That was the first River Solomon book I ever read, was in that class. I became obsessed with a book called Elysium by Jennifer Marie Brissett. Super underrated. I really need to reread it. And then after graduation, I was gifted a copy of The Jasmine Throne. I think I put that, well, I have The Lotus Empire here, but I was gifted a copy of The Jasmine Throne, and that like reminded me of why I loved fantasy, is that those books really brought me back to the world of fantasy and fantasy reading. So I really appreciate those books for reigniting the love of reading in me. I'm skipping a question. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? Okay, that's a weirdly phrased question. What challenges in starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I mean, I think that's some of the classic ones. I have a full-time job. This is a hobby. Sometimes we can't make time for hobbies because family, friends, life gets in the way. I also have ADHD, and sometimes my interests jump and plummet again. In this case, I really waited like a year and a half to make a booktube channel to make sure it wasn't like an interest that was gonna fade away. Like I really wanted to make sure it was something actually I would commit to for a little while. But there are gonna be times in my life where I just won't be able to prioritize making booktube content, and that's that. And I think the bigger challenge is accepting that and not like beating myself up for not being able to keep up with hobbies, because at the end of the day, a hobby is supposed to bring joy. It's not supposed to make you more stressed, and I just have to remember that. I think everyone else should too for their reading and their hobbies. Is there may be times in your life where you just can't read that much, and that is okay, because life is multifaceted, and just because you drift away from a hobby for a little while does not mean you can't come back to it. So I'm lecturing myself at this point, but it applies to other people too. This is a fun question. Where do you read? Is the second to last question. I like to read out in nature, outside in the fresh air. You've probably seen that. If you've watched any of the previous videos, you've probably seen that I'm always in a park nearby. Like I like to walk to places and sit and read, or out in a cafe. In my apartment in DC that I miss greatly, I had a book nook. These are my mom's bookshelves. So I put a couple of my books in the front to have some of my books surrounding me, but these are my mom's bookshelves. This is not my book nook. And I miss my book nook a lot. I had like beautiful big Billy bookshelves and like this really comfortable reading chair like buried in them. So in my next apartment, I will be rebuilding that book nook because I love to read there with like a CD player and everything. But for the moment, because I don't have that, I've just been going outside a lot instead to get some sunlight and some fresh air. And lastly, and most importantly, what kind of books do I like to read? Well, look at the shelves. I love fantasy sci-fi. At the moment, I'm kind of in my epic high fantasy arc, but I definitely go through like different periods of reading where I really want to read a bunch of high fantasy, and then I really want to read some literary fiction, and then I'm really loving memoirs. I think at the moment, I'm probably most obsessed with... Do I have a copy of it anywhere? I have back here Robin Hobb. I'm most obsessed with the Realm of the Elderling series, the Locked Tomb series. I'm starting Mistborn right now and I'm really enjoying it so far. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Expect lots of fantasy, expect lots of sci-fi. But I think one of the cases is I love to be reading at all times, and I'm a big mood reader. And so sometimes if I need a break from a fantasy series, like you can't just jump from one fantasy series to the next because like you're immersed in that world. You can't just jump to another world, is my opinion. So what I like to do is break it up with like romance books, lighter books, books that I do want to read and that I do enjoy reading, but don't necessarily give me that same thrill that fantasy do. And they make for nice little like inserts as well. But I've also found that I really love some classics and some literary fiction. Like I have Jane Austen back here. I have Jeanette Winterson back here. That's very much mood reading. That like I wouldn't consider myself an expert compared to some of the people on this website that are like experts in literary fiction or like general fiction. I'm not, but I do still love it. And recently I also love a memoir. I'm always down for a good memoir, especially audiobook memoirs are a new obsession of mine this year. I think I've probably read like 10 already just this year. So that's kind of where I'm at, but it changes a lot. Everyone's taste in books goes up and down, and I'm never opposed to trying a new flavor if someone has something good to recommend, because I think there's lots of good things to love in life. My throat is so dry. But those are all the questions for the Booktube Newbie introduction tag. I hope that it was a somewhat helpful look into my brain. I kind of started out this channel with no context, no intro, no nothing, just straight in. So I hope if you've been around for the last couple of videos, I have a couple of subscribers, hi. If you've been around, I hope this is useful context. And if you're new here, I hope you stick around because I have a lot of great books to talk about and I want to hear about all of your great books as well. So yeah, please leave a comment, please subscribe, whatever you want, whatever you're up to. I hope you have a really great day and I hope to see you around. Bye!